Good evening and welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Ankita Mukherjee. Horror in a South Delhi home as a teenage domestic help is brutalised by her employer, slashed with knives and mauled by dogs. How can such abuse of help, often victims of child trafficking, be prevented? And does the ban on child labour exist only on paper? That's our big focus tonight. But also on the show, there are 30 lakh people who call the streets of our cities their home, unsafe, alone and at the mercy of nature day in and day out. On the eve of Mahatma Gandhi's birthday, we're asking you to join NDTV's special campaign to spend a night with the homeless. But first, the big story coming in at this hour after Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi trashed as complete nonsense the ordinance designed to protect convicted lawmakers. The ruling party is looking for a way to kill it. The Union Cabinet will meet at 6 tomorrow evening to discuss the fate of the ordinance, which it had hurriedly approved last week. But is the government now hunting for that exit route from the ordinance? Sandeep Pukan joining us with details that he has of a cabinet note. Sandeep, tell us what more you know about this cabinet note and the way in which perhaps the cabinet is hoping to save face.
Absolutely, Ankita, this is something that we've been reporting since the morning, that essentially, though this cabinet is essentially to discuss the withdrawal, the modalities of withdrawing the ordinance to, ordinance on convicted MPs and MLAs, but, it actually lists out two options. Option one is to await the promulgation of the ordinance with the signature of the president, basically, wait for the president to sign on the ordinance. Option two is to withdraw the ordinance that was approved by the Union Cabinet. Technicality, Ankita, is that a decision taken by the cabinet can only be reversed by the cabinet. But before that decision is taken, sometime later in the evening, actually at 6 p.m. tomorrow, of course, there will be a series of meetings. The Congress core group will meet at 10:30, followed by a one-on-one meeting between the President and Prime Minister of India, where he is likely to discuss this issue again. But I must add here quickly that while giving out the reasons, it's quite interesting that the cabinet note says that once the provision of this ordinance became public, the decision came in for sharp criticism. And a perception was created that the government was actually trying to protect convicted lawmakers or legislators. Then the cabinet note goes on to say that in fact is not the case. A closer reading of the ordinance does not lead to such a conclusion, but it also admits that if they reverse their earlier decision, if they withdraw the ordinance, then it will be, it will be in keeping with the public mood, the public sentiment. So it's rare to actually see the importance of public mood or public sentiment being mentioned in a government note. That's the face saver, because otherwise, remember, the opposition can always attack them. Look here, one Rahul Gandhi has a public outburst and the entire cabinet falls in line and withdraws. So they are actually trying to come up with all these reasons. If they do it, why should they do it? If they don't withdraw, why should they not withdraw?
Right, clearly a catch-22 situation there, Sandeep, and no doubt there's going to be no end of controversy tomorrow when that ordinance withdrawal does in fact become a fact. But we'll of course continue to track that with you. For the moment, thanks for joining us with those details. Well, on to our big focus tonight. Just what can explain such cruelty? A teenage girl working as a domestic help in a posh South Delhi home, slashed with knives, mauled by dogs, allowed just the bare minimum of clothes in order to prevent her from walking out. The police have now arrested her employers, a 50-year-old woman who worked in a private company, and her mother. But sadly, this is by no means a one-off case, but it has brought the spotlight right back on the abuse of domestic help, often children trafficked from other states who have almost no legal protection.
Agent had taken full 1.5.
Brutalized, abused, tortured for 1 year by this woman and her mother who live in a house in South Delhi's upmarket Vasant Kunj. After neighbors called an NGO that they heard screaming, a rescue team reached the house. But it was 4 hours before they could actually get inside.
लड़की जमीन में बैठी थी, उसका पूरा माथा फटा हुआ था, ऐसा लग रहा था कोई जख्म, कोई किसी शार्प ऑब्जेक्ट से उसको मारा गया है। पूरे बॉडी में एज इफ कुछ बाइट्स के दाग्स हैं।
Local residents say that the mother-daughter duo hardly ever interacted with anyone in the neighborhood, but shocking details have now come out to us. In fact, the girl has told the police in her statement that she was not even allowed to walk out of the house. They did not even give her clothes to wear, so she could not walk out of the house and inform others about the ill treatment being meted out to her. Doctors say she has a deep knife wound on her head, which is infected, and a fractured skull. The teenager has told the police she was attacked with knives, sticks, brooms, and even kicked by her employer. The employer claims the injuries come from a fall in the bathroom. The capital has a history of cruelty to domestic helps. In March 2012, a 13-year-old domestic help was rescued from the house of a doctor couple who went off to holiday abroad for a week without leaving any food for her in the house. In April and October 2012, there were complaints from teenage domestic helps about rape and physical abuse by their employers. According to NGOs, the root of the problem is the illegal placement agencies, who are in effect human traffickers. Police confirm that it was one of these illegal placement agencies which sent the girl to Vandana Dheer, charging her 35,000 rupees as security money and 4,000 rupees a month.
It's horrible, it's barbaric. It's time these placement agencies are, better tracked and also put under stricter laws.
Vandana Dheer has been sent to police custody for a day, and police are trying to gather more evidence from her house. With camera person Sushil Rathi in New Delhi, Tanima Biswas for NDTV.
Well, joining us on this discussion tonight, Rishi Kant. He's a member of Shakti Vahini, the NGO that rescued this young girl. Kiran Bedi also on this discussion, Shoma Chaudhary, managing editor of Tehelka, and someone who's worked very closely with the issues of child labour and illegal trafficking. Also a very special guest tonight, Baby Haldar, a domestic worker by day but an author by night. She's written a book on her life as a domestic help, a book called A Life Less Ordinary. But let me begin with Rishi Kant first. You belong to the NGO that rescued the girl. You were actually there. You were part of that rescue operation. Just tell us, when you went there, what you saw.
It was around 2 o'clock when we first went there, and we told the house owner that we want to talk to your maid. She denied our entry inside the house, and she told us that you have to wait for my daughter to come. We waited for 4 hours for her daughter to come. In between, we were hearing a lot of screaming voice inside the house. We were telling the police that please do fast. But even though we waited for 4 hours, and after 4 hours, ultimately the daughter came around 7:30.
But when you saw the girl herself, what sort of injuries did you see? Just how bad was the situation?
Her head was completely, smashed, as if some sharp objects have been put into her head. The whole body, the bruises were in the whole body, and she was completely traumatized. She was not able to speak anything. The only thing she spoke was that she was from Jharkhand and she is from Sahibganj district.